we need our political system to reflect the goodness of the American people. And that, I think the majority, I don't have any question that the majority of Americans don't want somebody like Donald Trump to be the president. The majority of Americans really would like to have a president that their kids can look up to. They really would like a president they know is going to defend the peaceful transfer of power. And I think that's where we have to start. Whether it's organizing a new party, look, it's hard for me to see how the Republican Party, given what it has done, can make the argument convincingly or credibly that people ought to be voting for Republican candidates until it really recognizes what it's done.
We're back with Claire, David, and Eddie. I mean, David, this took Liz a long time to say. I think if you watch the convention speech in 2016, and you watch Trump give that speech, and then you watched everyone call. I remember saying on the air on NBC News that the Republican Party died in this room tonight, and it wasn't about him. It was about them. It was about clapping for that, right? And then the inaugural American Carnage. It was about enabling that. And even I just saw a headline in North Carolina that the 20-year-old staffers on the Robinson campaign had more integrity than the Republican Party. The Republican nominee hasn't disavowed him, but the 22-year-old staffers are like, I'm out. Right. I mean, the Republican Party has rotted from the inside out. They are the enablers for someone corrupt and criminal who's been convicted of crimes. And that apparatus is as worthy of examination and study and political prosecution as the apparatus that propped up Jeffrey Epstein, or the apparatus that's under scrutiny in the indictment. I mean, it's an apparatus that is propping up someone who's convicted of felonies, who's clearly corrupt, who's charged with others. And the apparatus doesn't get enough accountability. There's been no system until Liz Cheney started campaigning for Colin Allred and Kinzinger spoke at the Democratic Convention. But I feel like we've been rowing as hard as we can from the outside, but from the inside, it really needs to understand that it's part of something bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look, Donald Trump did not hijack the Republican Party. He walked through the front doors, and everybody lifted them on their shoulders. And he became the nominee of the party, the great ambassador, and the leader, and the party celebrated him. And that includes Liz Cheney in 16 and 20, as we've talked about, having voted for Donald Trump even after everything she saw. And so what do you do now? The truth is there's a thread to our previous conversation before the break, which was the Steph Rule, Bret Stephens conversation. And what if you're a never Trump Republican, or a Republican who's soft or can't vote for Trump? I would tell you this right now. There is something that started under Joe Biden, but really took hold under Vice President Harris in the last 2 months, which is this. If you are a never Trump Republican or a soft Republican, you are more welcome in today's Democratic Party than you are in your own party. Truly. You have been given a seat at the table in Vice President Harris's view of the Democratic Party. You don't have a seat at the table in today's Republican Party. You've functionally been kicked out. Now, for some people, it's a bridge too far to join the Democratic Party. So you heard Cheney tease out a new party thing. What I would suggest there is very simple math. It's a $100 million proposition to start a party. And don't conflate running a candidate for president with starting a party. Those are two totally different things. The other caution I would give is in this environment, you are not going to start a party under the dynamic, visible leadership of one person. It really takes a coalition coming along with the finances and the resources to do this in all 50 states. The one thing that the two major parties have been able to do over the last century is make it very hard to start a new party. So I think the fact that Liz Cheney is now talking about that suggests we are at a breaking point for today's Republican Party. There are many people who say it's time to leave. There are many people who have said, let's at least stay and fight the battle, even though we might have a few more cycles of losing. We'll win just by not leaving and standing on principle. Republicans, look, I know every Democrat thinks this. You created this mess. You own it. You earned it. Deal with it.
Claire, Harris doesn't get enough credit for doing exactly what David Jolly just said. There's no hesitation in welcoming and branding her own coalition as this ideologically diverse coalition that's about freedom. And I've never seen anyone in either party sort of create, and again, she gets, the parallels are always sort of, I think, intended in a very positive manner back to the 2008 Obama campaign in terms of enthusiasm. But we haven't really perfected the way to articulate the ideologically expansive nature of her base.
Yeah. And I think she doesn't get enough credit, Nicole, because it's a binary choice. And I think so many people are wrapped up in the disqualification of Donald Trump as a leader, as a terribly flawed man and a dangerous man in terms of having the kind of power a president has, that they aren't paying close attention to how much she is reaching out. Certainly the convention was a good example of reaching out to Republicans. You had a lot of Republicans speaking. I think a memorable line was from the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, who said, voting for Kamala Harris doesn't make you a Democrat, it makes you a patriot. And so, you know, but she will try. If she is elected, she will try to put Republicans in her cabinet. I remember when Obama worked at putting Republicans in his cabinet, and he managed Ray LaHood, and he you know, reached out to a few others. But it was tough to get Republicans to join in terms of a more unified party in the middle. It was tough. And now with social media and the polarized nature of our politics, it's even harder. But nobody can say she's not trying. And the criticism that she's not laying out her policies, I think that's going to start ringing pretty hollow when he refuses to debate her. I mean, he's cowering in a corner, refusing to debate her. How can he criticize her for not interviewing with people when he won't even stand on the stage and debate the issues with her?
Well, and Eddie, when he does stand on the stage and get a question about childcare, he all but goes to Tomato Man Woman, you know, the results of his own mocha test. I mean, this is like gobbledygook. I mean, the idea that anyone would say the reason I'm hung up is because I don't know what her policies are. I'd force you to sit through an entire Trump rally, and then you tell me that that's the right thing to be hung up on.
Because I think, you know, for most people, they understand that Trump is a cipher, that he's just a stand-in for a whole host of interests. You know, it's like him walking Mar-a-Lago, I just made all of you rich, right? And that kind of moment. But I don't want to run past something you just said earlier about the apparatus, about the enablers surrounding folk. And what cuts across all of these different domains that you mentioned: spectacle, greed, and cruelty.
And gluttony.
Greed and gluttony and cruelty.
Yeah.
Right? So the spectacle of our politics keeps us on the surface of things. And so someone like Donald Trump could enter into the sphere and feels like WWE, and everybody's glued to that particular moment. And then, of course, the greed is that Citizens United, this is my position, all the money that is that flows into our politics, all the money that the Kamala Harris campaign has raised. I was just thinking, what could be done socially, culturally in our country with all of those resources?
Right.
And then you combine it with the deep-seated hatred locked onto cruelty and meanness, and you see, well, this is where we are. This is how this kind of guy can be enabled. And, you know, I love Claire to death. It's not about, I understand the politics. It's not about the middle. In this moment, it's about us and how we're going to change the direction of our politics by addressing spectacle, greed, and cruelty.
And